My sad story. My name is Rose. I have always believed that life is a river, sometimes flowing gently, sometimes rushing violently, but always moving forward. Yet, for as long as I can remember, I have felt like a stone caught in the current, unable to choose my path, tumbling wherever the water decides to take me. I grew up in a small, forgotten town, in the middle of nowhere. My father left when I was 6, and my mother, though she tried her best, never quite recovered from the heartbreak. She worked long hours at a diner to make ends meet, her hands perpetually smelling of grease and detergent. I remember sitting by the window of our tiny apartment, waiting for her to come home, the sound of the clock ticking endlessly in the silence. I've always been quiet, a shadow lingering at the edge of rooms. My classmates barely noticed me in school, and I'm not sure I wanted them to. I learned early on that being invisible was easier than being seen. The few times I tried to step into the light, I was met with ridicule, or, worse, pity. "Poor Rose," they'd whisper. "Her dad left, and her mom's a mess." I hated the way they looked at me, like I was something broken that couldn't be fixed. When I was 17, I met Sam. He was everything I wasn't: bold, confident, and full of dreams that seemed so much bigger than our small town. He had a smile that could light up the darkest corners of the world, and when he looked at me, I felt like I mattered. We spent endless nights talking about the future, about all the places we'd go and the things we'd do. With Sam, for the first time, I felt like I was more than a shadow. I felt alive. We got married young, too young, some would say. But I didn't care. I was desperate to escape the suffocating weight of my past, and Sam was my way out. We moved to the city where the streets buzzed with life and possibilities. Sam worked hard, chasing his dreams, while I took a job as a secretary. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and I was content just being by his side. For a while, life was good. We rented a small apartment with peeling paint and creaky floors, but it was ours. We laughed, we dreamed, and we loved. I thought we had forever. But life, as it so often does, had other plans. It started with late nights at the office. Sam said he was working overtime to save for our future, but the distance between us grew, like a chasm I couldn't bridge. He became a stranger, his eyes clouded with secrets he wouldn't share. And then, one day, he was gone. He left a note on the kitchen table, saying he couldn't do it anymore, that he needed to find himself. I read those words over and over, my hands shaking, my heart shattering into pieces too small to pick up. I tried to move on, but the city, that once felt so full of life now, seemed cold and unkind. I went to work, came home, and repeated the cycle, each day blending into the next. The dreams I once had with Sam felt like distant memories. Like they belonged to someone else. I stopped smiling, stopped hoping, stopped believing that life could be anything more than a series of disappointments. Years passed, and I found myself back in my hometown, living in the same tiny apartment where I grew up. My mother had grown older, her body frail, her mind slipping away. I took care of her as best as I could, feeding her, bathing her, and holding her hand when she cried for a past she couldn't remember. It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally, but I felt like I owed it to her. To the woman who had sacrificed so much for me. One cold winter night, as I sat by her bedside, she looked at me with a clarity I hadn't seen in years. "Rose," she said. Her voice barely a whisper, "You have to let go. You've spent your whole life holding on to pain, to people who don't deserve your love. Promise me you'll let go." I nodded, tears streaming down my face, but I didn't know how to keep that promise. How do you let go of the things that define you? How do you release the weight when it's all you've ever known? My mother passed away a few weeks later, and I was left alone in a world that felt unbearably empty. I sold the apartment and used the money to travel, hoping to find whatever it was I'd lost along the way. I wandered through cities and villages, through bustling markets and quiet forests, searching for something I couldn't name. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I found myself sitting by a river. The water flowed gently, its surface shimmering in the fading light. I watched as the current carried leaves and twigs downstream, and for the first time, I understood what my mother meant. Life is a river, always moving forward, and I was the one who had kept myself stuck, clinging to the past, to the pain, to the people who had left me behind. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill my lungs. And then, slowly, I began to let go. I let go of the anger, the sadness, the regret. I let go of Sam and the dreams we'd shared. I let go of the little girl who sat by the window, waiting for a mother who was too tired to notice. I let go of the woman who had spent her life feeling invisible, feeling unworthy of love. When I opened my eyes, I felt lighter, as if the weight I had carried for so long had been washed away by the river. I stood up, feeling the earth solid beneath my feet, and, for the first time in my life, I felt free. The current of life would still carry me, but now, I was no longer a stone, tumbling helplessly. I was a leaf, floating gently, ready to embrace whatever way ahead.